Good morning, everybody, and thank you for being here today. Before I start, let me just mention that what I'm going to present to you today is not the core area of my research. My research is about transnational media licensing. So what I'm going to talk about today is somehow sits in the background, it's a kind of preparatory aspect of my broader research interest. I've been involved in a short research project a couple of years ago in one of the companies that I'm going to mention to you today. But I also will draw heavily from an very good existing literature about these topics, both in Japanese and the English language. So today, what I'd like to do is to contribute to this discussion on comparative perspectives on branded content by looking at their development in the context of the Japanese media industries. There are some very good reasons for doing this, the most evident being probably the global reach of many Japanese media franchises successfully distributed around the world, such as Pokemon, Hello Kitty, or The Ghost in the Shell, for example, just to mention the latest Hollywood adaptation of this cult science fiction series. These very diverse and popular products of entertainment media are usually referred to in Japan as the domain of the so-called content industries. A definition including animation, comics, music, and video games, clearly marking an emphasis on the management of contents rather than on aspects such as culture or creativity that we usually find in such as expressions as the cultural or the creative industries. Finally, another good reason to consider branded content in Japan is that we don't know very much about it. We usually tend to assume that regional brandscapes are quite identical to one another, but this is not always the case. And the East Asian brandscape, with its powerful regional brands competing with well-known global giants, is quite diverse and particularly understudied. So I hope that this talk could be a chance to learn more about the role played by companies and brands you might not be immediately familiar with. So let's get started by mentioning very quickly how the development of a prototypical form of branded content in Japan started to be experimented already in the 1960s, with the rise of the famous industry of Japanese TV animation, whereby creative authors such as Tezuka Osamu had to compensate to the extremely high production costs by attracting the interest of some industrial partners. In the case of Astro Boy, the very first series of TV animation ever produced in Japan, Tezuka famously established a sponsoring partnership with chocolate maker Meiji Seika in exchange of the use of the character's image for advertising. With no existing regulation on this matter, this was a first move towards the creation of a new form of branded content based on entertainment media. On the other hand, however, this kind of sponsorship can be also understood as particular forms of artistic patronage in which the authors were still very much in control of the contents they produced. In the same years, for instance, renowned film director Ichikawa Kon recurred to the same expedient while directing in 1964 his monumental documentary Tokyo Olympiad, when he personally approached private sponsors such as Coca-Cola and Olivetti to receive some extra backing for his films, but crucially, retaining full creative control on the film's contents. So after this brief historical background, let's now consider the more sophisticated strategies of branded content developed in more recent times by one particular media company, Kadokawa Corporation, commonly regarded as the leader in the management of media content as brands. A strategy usually known to Japanese media practitioners as the so-called media mix. Kadokawa Publishing was founded in 1945 by a literature professor believing in the educational and progressive function of literature for the development of a new generation of citizens that had to rebuild an entire country. The company, therefore, started as a second-tier but well-respected publishing company, specialized in literature classics of that time. Things changed, however, when the company was inherited in the 1970s by Kadokawa Haruki, an individualistic entrepreneur that had a very different conception of literature and business. With Haruki, Kadokawa initiated a new business strategy, tellingly defined as the Holy Trinity. Central to this strategy was the acquisition of a film studio and the relative restructuring of the publishing company around it. The strategy basically consisted in collapsing the boundaries between different media, producing costly blockbuster films adaptations from books already in the company's catalog. The book was also reinvented as a cheap form of entertainment within a transmedia system where books, films, and relative soundtracks synergistically fostered the sales of one another, thanks to a coordinated advertising campaign. Also featuring within the book's covers. The slogan, read it, then watch it, or watch it and then read it, aptly represented the functioning of this synergetic system. In the 1980s, however, this Trinity strategy based on mass blockbusters and big celebrities started to grow weaker, as cinema started to enter in competition with new forms of entertainment media. These years were characterized by the popularity not only of TV sets, but also of VCRs, personal computers, and video games consoles. These devices diversified the audience into smaller and more specialized segments, making the high-budget, high-risk strategy characterizing the company no longer tenable. Within the group, however, better economic results were enjoyed by a small company led by Haruki's younger brother, Tsuruhiko, and constructed around the publication of new specialized magazines, establishing a close and intimate relationship with their readers. So in 1982, for example, Kadokawa launched this specialized magazine, The Television, specialized around the broadcasting industry and celebrity culture. Then Comtic in 1983, specialized on computer games, personal computers, informatics, and so on. And then in 1985, New Type, the magazine for aficionados of Japanese animation, of Japanese animation. These magazines were managed by means of a low-budget, low-risk strategy as platforms for the production rather than simple reproduction of popular contents. Now, to get an idea of how this new model worked, let's consider the example of the successful fantasy media franchise Record of Lodoss War. As with many other properties in Kadokawa's catalog, even this franchise started from a casual concept. In this case, a series of articles introducing the Japanese readers of Comtic to the North American trend of role-playing games. We are in the early 1980s. These articles were a series of transcriptions of game sessions played by the editors themselves and featuring drawings of characters and settings in the style of manga comics necessary to communicate to a readership that at that time had little or no familiarity at all with the Western aesthetic of fantasy. What the editors realized, however, was that the readers became soon very fond of the characters and their stories and started demanding more contents about them. So the company was pushed to extend the story of the original transcript by publishing little by little several kind of different adaptations from this concept and settings. novels adaptations, comic books, animation series, and so on. This gave rise to a very long-lasting media franchise, still developing today. This model of utilizing magazines and other media as platforms to develop media franchises according to the feedbacks of the audience has become a central strategy of the Kadokawa Group ever since. As stated by representative director Inoue Shinichiro, the company is based on different pillars, but none of them can be considered as self-sufficient. Every department is connected with all the others. Also, and to remark the importance of maintaining strong ties with its consumers, the company is also very fond of making parodies and jokes about itself, such as this one, for example, Inoue appearing in one of their own animated series. And this is a way of both mirroring but also preempting the kind of cultural appropriations usually sought after by specialized consumers in the context of the participatory cultures of media convergence. So this is a recent plan of the corporate's brand portfolio, and it clearly states how the contents they have developed over time are nurtured as brands. Now, before finishing, there is still a very recent development in Kadokawa's media mix strategy that is crucial to consider. In October 2014, a merger between Kadokawa and new media giant Dwango was publicly announced. But this is a very unusual, very rare case of merger between an old and well-respected media corporation with a new media company, usually not well seen by the Japanese establishment. So how can we explain this move? Now, Dwango is the owner of Nico Nico, an extremely successful video sharing platform, particularly popular amongst the niche segments of consumers of popular culture. With its 8 million visitors per month, Nico Nico has a traffic almost comparable to the one enjoyed by YouTube in Japan. The strength of this platform, however, lies in its innovative video overlay tagging system that allow users to constantly modify with text the contents of the uploaded videos, so producing a sort of simultaneous complicity among users. So the videos are simultaneously modified by the audiences, so they interactively participate in the development itself of these videos that are usually user-generated contents.
So they're writing over the
yes.
video? So they can only write, right? Because
Yeah. So basically, they have a series of tags that they can directly put on top of the video as the video unfolds. Sorry, just finishing. So what Kadokawa's chairman defined as a fusion of reality and the internet, therefore, was meant to bring to a new level the interactive relationship with the audience that had long characterized the company's business strategy. As Inoue puts it, Nico Nico exposed young viewers to many popular phrases and scenes from older series, lowering hurdles on remakes. By getting control of both the successful digital platform and the big data constantly generated by its users, this merger would allow Kadokawa to produce more effective products by analyzing trends and keywords emerged from the user-generated contents available on Nico Nico. This is a problematic new step in media concentration, and indeed a new phase of trended content in Japan and all over the world. So think, for example, of the media contents produced by digital platforms such as Amazon or Netflix, for example. So to conclude, I hope to have shown how the form of branded content represented by the media mix system has been developed over the years in the context of the Japanese contents industries. As I have shown, this media system has been particularly effective in establishing and maintaining over time coherent relations between consumers, products and services across the Japanese media scape. And it is still evolving in novel forms today, including, for instance, the very extension of media contents to the built environment is testified, for example, by such outlets as the Gundam Cafe, based on one of Kadokawa's central branded content. In any case, and whatever new forms this branded media will take in the future, I hope to have highlighted the importance of looking at distant brandscapes in order to consider with a different light the converging models of branded contents we are already familiar with. Thank you very much.